Sebastian, how central do you think Europe's position in the world is due to the completion of the single market?
Well, I think we have to separate two things here. First, the single market as it is today, and then the next steps which are supposed to be taken to finalize this market. And when we look at the single market today, I think this is very central for how the rest of the world watches us and looks upon us. Actually, we are a role model for the rest of the world. Whenever I travel around the world and look at other regions which think about regional integration agreements, they always look at Europe as a model. And the single market is part of it. The ease with which business can actually sell abroad and sell cross-border, this is something which the businesses in Argentina and Brazil would be dreaming about. And even if you have some different VAT regimes, and there are some obstacles left, I mean, we can just bring goods, parts, components, custom-free across borders. If I travel to Paris, I can go in the morning, I'll be back in the afternoon. I have no border controls, no passport controls. This really eases things. And if you talk to German businesses, this is at the heart of their success in production. The production networks, they span across Europe, and they are only able to do that because of the single market as we know it. That being said, the question is whether really, doing the next steps is equally essential. In a way, I have the impression that while the house burns, we are discussing whether, having some other interior paint might increase the rental value of the house. Because, I mean, it's all nice to have to even remove the last barriers, but it's neither going to bring us any significant growth, and actually it's not even able to compensate what's going wrong in the euro crisis. At the moment, we are moving towards a completely fragmented banking and financial market. German banks don't lend to Spanish banks anymore, not to Spanish companies, not to Spanish households. That means a very well-managed Spanish firm now has to pay a higher interest rate than a badly managed German one. And this leads to a situation where all of the business starts concentrating on their home market, and actually German businesses are cutting back their production networks, their production sharing, because they don't know whether their counterparts in Italy or Spain will get the loans for the next step in the production. And this is something, the single market is more than just the rules. It has been made by companies, which actually brought that to life. And this is disintegrating at the moment and quickly. And I would agree with Yannis here. If the European Union cannot come to grips with that, I mean, it's just cute what we see under the Single Market Act 2 from the Commission. And watching them trying to push that forward in this situation, in a way, could be funny if the situation weren't that serious.
David, is it funny or serious, or both?
No, I think I agree with much of what you say, because I would not suggest for 1 minute that completing the single market is the only thing that makes sense or is needed now. I just think it's one essential thing, along with sorting out the problems of the Eurozone and indeed of Britain, which is outside the Eurozone, and other member states whose economies are not that brilliant at the moment. And all that has to be done as well as completing the single market. But to my point of view, and I'd be interested in what you said about the view outside Europe, I think completing the single market to include energy, to include the digital area, to include services properly, because services are a huge part of all our economies, and they aren't a single market at the moment. All that will contribute to any growth strategy worthy of the name, but they will not be on their own the solution. And above all, I would ask you whether you agreed. I think it is very important to continue to avoid a Fortress Europe approach, because if Europe is to be more successful economically in the future, I think I'd be interested in your views. I think we need to realise that the most rapidly growing markets are outside Europe, not inside Europe. So we need to be competitive to be able to win those markets or to win a share of those markets. And having a single market helps us do that.
Sebastian?
I would say we will be measured by outcomes. And in a way, what we have done now that this promotes growth and innovation was a no-brainer. It becomes much more difficult for the areas where we are now going to liberalize. take energy or take the railways. I mean, we all would like to have more competition, lower prices, but we still want to have reliable supply. And in those network industries, my profession, the economists, they don't really have good solutions how to do it. There's no clear-cut solution. It's much different than from, let's say, the market for apples or, steel or whatever. And that being said, I'm not so sure how big the benefits really will be from this next step. And if they are only small, then it doesn't change that much in our global standing. I would agree completely with you that a Fortress Europe approach is not the right way to go. We need to be attractive for our partners in Latin America or China, and the European market needs to remain attractive as a market they want to come to and want to sell in. And this will only happen if we manage to prevent the euro crisis from leading to a breakup or a segmentation of this market.
Professor Sacker, the euro crisis is really at the knob.
Absolutely. In terms of the timing, this we have to speak about the euro crisis when we speak about the single market. But once again, your arguments, with which I agree with most of it, is again arguments for greater simplification, for greater unification, for in the case of energy, liberalizing energy sector even more. In case of networks, once again, making all these infrastructure networks function. Rail operators should work from one country to another country without any problems. Same thing with the banks. Now, having said all of this, once again, and again getting back to what David said, this is just one of the dimensions. The other dimension that really worries me, that we're not really talking anymore about the Lisbon strategy. Whatever happened to the Lisbon agenda? Why aren't we speaking about what's happening to our R&D investment despite the crisis?
Well, unfortunately, the Lisbon agenda has long been forgotten. It hasn't
Absolutely,
really...
and we should somehow or the other bring it back on the agenda. What went wrong? Why did they go wrong? We should analyze this, because if you take away a cluster of countries like Germany, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, the rest of the countries in terms of R&D investment, it's way down, much lower than what, for example, China is investing now.
So, Sebastian, why do you think the Lisbon agenda sort of sank in the...
I mean, the first thing is that productivity is nice to have, but no one really knows how to create it. The second thing is there has been a change in the view of these things among economists. In the past was that productivity is only a supply side thing. There has been more recent research which is saying, well, at least if you have imperfect financial markets, as we have in most countries, and especially in Europe, recession cuts down on research and development because firms cannot borrow and invest that in research and development. So there is this important work by Philippe Aghion, and he's saying, well, if you have more macroeconomic fluctuations or larger fluctuations, then you will have less investment in R&D by the private sector, and in the end, less productivity growth. And the numbers he puts forward, they're really impressive. They are much higher for what we could gain from a more stable pan-European macroeconomic environment than from tweaking in some of the network markets.
Professor, so yeah, just a reaction to your argument.
Very quick question, Professor. My question would be, why are we not creating any Googles in Europe? Why are there no Microsoft? Why are there no Apples falling in Europe? And maybe that's one of the dimensions that I would like to push this argument towards. I don't know if you have any suggestion or if you have a comment on that.
I mean, I would ask you why do we have the biggest and most successful car companies in Europe? Why do we have Siemens or some of the network suppliers? In a way, you can ask whether maybe some of the German culture or the German or even the European system of educating people is more geared at the manufacturing sector than at the service sector. And well, Apple might not be all that positive. I mean, as a monopolist, they have a revenue to profit to revenue ratio of almost 50%. So half of the money you pay for your iPod just goes directly to the shareholders. That's nice for them, but the question is that really what makes an economy big and good? And we should not forget that the US is not able to sell in a lot of markets. Their car companies were not competitive. The manufacturing sector had a lot of problems. And just because they have some big internet companies does not mean that the economy as a whole is so much more competitive and innovative than the European.
But it's certainly more reactive in job creation, as we've just seen from the last figures. André?
Yeah, it's very beautiful, because basically here's the argument that there's the Romney argument of the trickle-down economy, that if you give shareholders a lot of money, it will trickle down into the economy. And I think you're correct in saying that, Sebastian, that is not the case. What you need to do is to, in Europe, empower, I think, those entrepreneurs that are creative, that are trying to make new products. Smaller companies also have a very, very high productivity, because people are actually very close to the product that they're making, and they know what they're making, and they're trying to make it better than anything else in the world, because it's their thing. And so I think that only focusing on the market aspect is neglecting on where innovation comes from. And innovation comes from well-educated people. And we have been cutting down on education in many countries, and educating people less than we did before. And that is a huge, huge problem. Okay, more people enter education, but education, I work in an educational institute, it's really downgrading in terms of its quality.
Let me thank Sebastian.